Lifeboats are designed to save lives. They are one of the last lines of defense when a vessel fails offshore, built to keep survivors afloat, visible, and protected from the open sea. But in prolonged maritime incidents, something uncomfortable begins to happen. The same lifeboat, meant to preserve life, can slowly become a high-risk survival environment. Not because the equipment fails, but because the conditions inside the boat begin to work against the human body and mind. Most people imagine the danger ends once survivors make it into the lifeboat. In reality, that's often when a different kind of survival clock begins. Inside a lifeboat, space is limited, movement is restricted. Ventilation can be poor, especially in enclosed or partially enclosed models, and when multiple survivors are packed together, heat begins to build faster than many expect. During daylight hours, solar exposure alone can push internal temperatures to uncomfortable and sometimes dangerous levels. The human body relies heavily on evaporation to regulate heat, but inside a crowded lifeboat, airflow is reduced, humidity rises, sweat becomes less effective at cooling the body. Over time, this creates the first major threat: dehydration acceleration. Even mild dehydration begins to impair cognitive function. Decision-making slows, mood becomes more volatile, attention narrows. In offshore survival situations, small drops in mental clarity can have outsized consequences. But dehydration is only one piece of the problem. Fatigue begins to compound as well. Survivors in lifeboats rarely get quality rest. The motion of the sea continues, the body remains in a low-level stress state, and psychologically, the uncertainty of rescue weighs heavily on everyone aboard. As hours stretch into a full day, and then beyond, the emotional environment inside the lifeboat often begins to shift. At first there is relief. Survivors have made it off the vessel, they are afloat, there is structure, there is equipment. But over time, the quiet reality of their situation starts to settle in. Rescue may not be immediate, supplies are finite, the ocean horizon remains unchanged. This is where psychological pressure begins to build. In many documented maritime incidents, tension inside lifeboats rises in predictable phases. First comes restlessness. People shift frequently, they scan the horizon repeatedly, conversations become shorter, more strained. Then comes irritability. Dehydration, heat, and lack of sleep begin to affect emotional regulation. Small disagreements feel larger, patience thins, group cohesion, one of the most important survival advantages, can begin to weaken. And in prolonged incidents, the most dangerous phase can emerge: cognitive fatigue. This is where decision-making quality begins to degrade. Survivors may begin to misjudge distances, they may become overly optimistic about nearby vessels, or overly pessimistic about rescue timelines. Both extremes can be dangerous, because lifeboat survival is, at its core, an exercise in controlled patience. Energy must be conserved, water must be rationed carefully, exposure must be managed deliberately. The survivors who fare best in extended lifeboat scenarios are rarely the strongest individuals physically. They are the ones who maintain structured routines, measured communication, deliberate energy conservation, and most importantly, psychological stability. Because once the environment inside the lifeboat begins to feel oppressive, hot, cramped, uncertain, the human nervous system starts to look for ways to escape the discomfort. This is where risky decisions sometimes appear: unnecessary movement, poor ration discipline, attempts to do something simply to relieve the psychological pressure of waiting. But offshore survival often rewards restraint far more than action. The ocean is patient, and in many lifeboat incidents, the true danger is not the equipment itself. It is the slow accumulation of heat, dehydration, fatigue, and psychological stress working together over time. A lifeboat is absolutely a survival tool, but only when the people inside it understand the quiet pressures that begin building after the initial rescue phase ends. Because at sea, survival is rarely decided in one dramatic moment. More often, it's determined by how well the human body and mind hold together in the long, uncomfortable hours that follow.